Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. This is another 30 Teams, 30 preview as part of the special we are doing here on the Real Sports Talk and the Nation Sports Blog. Today we are on to the Tampa Bay Rays, who last year were the first team out of the AL wildcard. They went 90-72 and continued their success under manager Joe Maddon. Now, with a team that has as low of a budget as the Rays normally do, you would think they wouldn't make a ton of offseason moves, but they made a lot of smaller moves. They traded away James Shields, who had been a mainstay on this team in their entire successful period of their franchise, but last year was extremely inconsistent until down the stretch, so I don't think it's as big a loss as people anticipate. They bring in James Loney. They signed both Fausto Carmona and Leo Nunez, who are going under 15 different names, so I don't even know what their current names are. They signed Kelly Johnson, and they also acquire Yunel Escobar, who was traded from the Braves, or from the Blue Jays to the Marlins, and then back over to the American League East to join this Tampa Bay Rays team. So, Justin, looking at this team's offseason moves, what did you think?
I was really excited with what they got this year because you know what? They got Leo Nunez. I'm basing off what their name was in Major League Baseball before they changed their names. They got Leo Nunez and Fausto Carmona. I don't think those two are going to make a big impact on the team, but you know what? It's good that they're back in Major League Baseball. I think they were really two exciting baseball players that I really enjoyed watching, so that could work out somewhere down the line. They got Kelly Johnson from the Toronto Blue Jays, who will more than likely be serving as a backup to Ryan Roberts, as it also says on their website. I like that move. He could get you at a nice solid average and also some great home run power. Yunel Escobar, I think that's going to be a questionable move because, just his personality-wise, I still think that what he brought on his eye black is going to be an issue. That's why the Marlins didn't want to bring that over to Miami, so that's probably why they traded him over to Tampa Bay. But you know what? I really like the overall moves from this Tampa Bay Rays team this offseason, and I really think that this team can compete in this American League East.
It's certainly a division that's going to be fun to watch because every single team in this division could legitimately make the playoffs. I have my questions about the Red Sox, but the Orioles made the playoffs last year, the Yankees made the playoffs last year, the Rays won 90 games, and the Toronto Blue Jays had one of the biggest off seasons in MLB history. So certainly an interesting division that this team could be a first-place team, this team could be a last-place team, and there might not be that much of a difference. Beginning with their lineup, we're going to start with their DH, Luke Scott, who after spending his career with the Astros and the Orioles came over to Tampa Bay last year, and in 96 games, over 300 at-bats, disappointed average-wise at .229 with 14 home runs, 55 RBIs. He's probably not the best option they could possibly have at DH. He's never given a great average, but what they need to get back to is that Luke Scott of 2009 and 2010, they hit 25 and 27 home runs. If they can get that production, then that's great. If not, then maybe this is a team that at the deadline needs to go find a different DH. There's still guys like Jim Thome sitting out in free agency. So I think that Luke Scott is a decent option at DH if we get the old Luke Scott.
That could be a great move there, Jim Thome with the Tampa Bay Rays. But with Luke Scott, last year he was down in the farm system, rehabbing an injury that he had. And I think Luke Scott could possibly bounce back from this injury. I think he can have the same amount of home runs as he had last year because, back with Baltimore in 2010, 2009, he does have the capabilities of reaching up to 27 to even up to 30 home runs a year. But you know what? I think that he just needs to be consistent enough and he has to be healthy to, get this, to have a productive season for the Rays.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Now, a catcher, we have one of the Molina brothers, probably the worst Molina brother, to be quite honest, and that is Jose Molina, who last year hit .223, 8 home runs, and 32 RBIs. This entire season last year, this was a team that struggled to find a consistent catcher, and they should have addressed it more aggressively in the offseason. Now, I understand that there's not a lot of great catchers in the MLB. None of them really hit free agency, except maybe Mike Napoli, who's playing at first base now, and they was out of their price range anyway. But Jose Molina, I'm very disappointed, really, that the Rays could not go out and find a better option than mid-30s Jose Molina, who did not produce well for this team last year.
I agree there. I think the Rays really got to look down into their farm system. I know they got Jose Lobaton, but you know what? I think Jose Molina right now is the best you're going to get right now, because Jose Molina, he is getting up there in age right now, and it's just a matter of time until they actually start going full time with Jose Lobaton. But you know what? Jose Molina does bring, some minor pop to his bat, and that's what the Rays need. And he also is a great veteran on this team and can provide some good veteran leadership.
Now, Jose Lobaton's likely to be the backup. They have a couple other guys on the 40-man roster currently because, again, this is a position that they need to get sorted out. But my guess is Jose Lobaton, the young catcher, will be their backup. And Jose Lobaton last year in 69 games hit 222, 2 home runs, and 20 RBIs. So overall, there is not a great option. If there's a hole in this team, it is at their catcher's position. Jose Molina might get you a good glove, but they need a catcher who's going to hit better than 223. This is a team at the deadline that needs to look for a catcher and someone that could not only be there for this year, but maybe even into the future. One name to keep an eye on would be Carlos Ruiz, an impending free agent. Maybe they pick him up for the rest of the year if the Phillies aren't in contention. That's just throwing a name out there, but ultimately this is a team that needs to get sorted out at catcher. At first base, they hope they sorted themselves out by signing James Loney, the longtime Los Angeles Dodger who was dealt to the Red Sox for the second half of the season as part of that monster deal with Adrian Gonzalez, Josh Beckett. That deal, one of the biggest deals ever, really. And he has really disappointed me because I expected that this was going to be a guy who was a top 10 first baseman. I mean, I remember back in 2008, he hit 289. He was never someone that had great power, but he hit 13 home runs, 90 RBIs, so he was still driving a lot of runs in considering he wasn't hitting for a ton of power. And then the last few years, he's really just fallen off, especially last year with the Dodgers hitting 254 with 4 home runs. He became a guy who was not even an everyday first baseman, really. He was more of a only against righties type guy, and that's just never what I expected out of James Loney. If the Rays are really going to make a run in this division, we have to get the James Loney of 2008, 2009, and not the James Loney we've seen the last couple years.
Oh, no doubt, man. I think James Loney is gonna also be a player you want to watch out for. I mean, there's a lot of players you want to look out for this season, but I think on this race, you really want to look at the production that James Loney has got to, come to the plate this upcoming season for the Tampa Bay Rays. I really like how he went over to the Boston Red Sox, and I was hoping that the Boston Red Sox were able to hold on to him, because you know what, I think he has a lot of power, and we haven't been seeing that a whole lot ever since we saw him back in 2009 and 2008 when he had that 13 home run season. But he's just fallen off a little bit. But he does play great defensive baseball over at first base. Can get you a couple of home runs here and there, and that's something that you really want. And he can bring a power bat to this lineup. And you know what? I think he's going to be a guy you really want to look out for.
Now, backing him up, this is one of the strengths that the Rays have. Is they might not have the best starting lineup, but they have a lot of depth. You look at guys like Ben Zobrist and Sean Rodriguez, who will also be filling other roles on this team as main backups and starters in the case of Ben Zobrist. But I think in the end, this is going to be James Loney's job. James Loney is going to be the starter over at first base, and if he doesn't work out, this team's really going to struggle. At second base, they're going to go with Ryan Roberts, who they acquired in a waiver deal last year from the Arizona Diamondbacks. In 60 games for the Rays, he had 214, but he's never been a great guy at the average. Was able to get 6 home runs, 18 RBIs. He has the capability to play third base. He did that because the reason they picked him up was because Evan Longoria was out. So ultimately, Ryan Roberts and Kelly Johnson, who will be his backup. Kelly Johnson coming over from Toronto where he had 225, 16 home runs. I see a situation here where you're ultimately going to end up with a platoon where Kelly Johnson starts against right-handed pitchers and Ryan Roberts starts against left-handed pitchers. I think that would be the best option for this team.
No doubt. I like that, that platoon with Kelly Johnson and Ryan Roberts. I was really surprised why the Diamondbacks traded away Ryan Roberts, actually, because this guy was on a roll with the Diamondbacks. He was the main third base for that team at the time. And I was just really surprised that they traded him away. But you know what? He came over to the Tampa Bay Rays. He fell off, a lot of highlight reels and everything. And I wouldn't say he went into a decline, but you know what? He fell down a little bit. The end of the season last year, he batted 235, 12 home runs, 52 RBIs. That's mainly what you're going to be getting out of Ryan Roberts. But you know what? He's going to be starting every day at his normal position over at second base. And I like that, actually, because, he's going to get more playing time. But that's also really good, so I can't wait to see Ryan Roberts play for the Rays this year.
Now, at shortstop, we're talking about Yunel Escobar, one of these guys in the MLB who every year with the Atlanta Braves, we hear how much potential he has. It never worked out there. He went to Toronto, had a pretty solid 2011 at 290, 11 home runs, stole a few bases. And then last year, ultimately, I think what everyone remembers is him writing the gay slur on his eye black in Spanish. I still don't know why he did that. But this offseason was a tumultuous offseason for Yunel Escobar. He was traded as part of the Hanley Ramirez, Mark Burley trade. He was traded to the Miami Marlins, who then flipped him to Tampa Bay. And I don't know what to expect with Yunel Escobar. He hit 253 last year, 9 home runs, 51 RBIs. I think you're going to get about 10 home runs, but there's a big difference between the Yunel Escobar that's hitting 253 and the Yunel Escobar that's hitting 290, 300. If you can get that Yunel Escobar, then you have a good player. I mean, look, the 2009 Yunel Escobar that hit almost 300 with 14 home runs, 76 RBIs, if the Rays can get that, then they have their shortstop for the next few seasons.
I like Yunel Escobar, but his personality does bite a little bit. But when he's playing baseball, you see this guy on a lot of highlight reels making these tremendous, amazing defensive plays. And shortstop is where he's going to live at for his whole career. Obviously, he played shortstop for his whole career. But this guy is a highlight reel machine, and he does make great defensive plays, and that's what they really need. And I think Yunel Escobar, they've got to have a good, solid average out of him. The home runs, he's not going to give you a whole lot. About on average, about 13, 14 home runs a season is going to be really, really solid for him. And that's what they really need out of him. So I really hope that he can bounce back, from a bad attitude-wise. I hope he has a great attitude with the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think he really does have a bright future with this team.
Now, backing him up again, Ben Zobrist, and Sean Rodriguez is likely to be the main backup. What you're going to get out of Sean Rodriguez is a very good glove, probably not the best bat, but I like Sean Rodriguez as your backup in the infield because Ben Zobrist has the ability, if someone else would step up in the outfield, and if you would need to move Ben Zobrist, you have Sam Fold in the outfield, so Ben Zobrist could move to the infield somewhere. I'm not too worried about Sean Rodriguez because I think Ben Zobrist gives you a good bat. Sean Rodriguez gives you a very good glove off the bench, and I like that out of Sean Rodriguez. Now, looking over to third base is where you have one of the guys who normally you're comfortable with. Last year, actually really had trouble staying healthy. That's Evan Longoria. A few years ago, one of the best players in the game. Hit 31 home runs, 99 RBIs, struggled with the average in 2011, hit 244. But prior to that was a 280, 290 hitter, expect about 30 home runs. And then last year the injuries really killed him throughout the season. I believe he had a back injury. And last year he hit in 74 games, hit 289, 17 home runs, 55 RBIs. He was having a pretty solid campaign. And the injuries just ultimately killed his season last year. If the Rays are truly going to be a playoff team, Evan Longoria is going to be the best player in this entire lineup because I think when he's healthy, him and David Wright are the best third baseman in the MLB.
Oh, I agree. I think when Evan Longoria went down last year, it went through my mind that this Rays season went down. But you know what? They won those 90 games, which was a big factor. I mean, you got some guys on this team like Desmond Jennings, you got Matt Joyce, you got Ryan Robertson loaning there for a little while. But Evan Longoria has got to be on top of his game. He has to be 100% healthy if this team is really gonna, try and be a surprising team in this American League East this year. But he has to be healthy. That's going to be the key factor this year for Evan Longoria. Get back to the old Evan Longoria form that we saw, with the 31 home runs in 2011, the 22 home run, we got to get back to the old Evan Longoria in 2011. That's what this team really needs out of Evan Longoria this year.
In the outfield, starting in left field, we have Matt Joyce starting. Matt Joyce has developed into a pretty solid player. And that's what he is. He's a pretty solid player. In 2011, if he can give you the 277, 19 home runs, 75 RBIs, you'll take it. Last year at 241, 17 home runs. You need the average to go up. Ultimately, Matt Joyce was a guy in Detroit that everyone coveted. They thought he had a ton of potential, and he's never turned into one of those type of players like a Jason Worth or someone like that where he has all this potential and it doesn't work out initially and then he blows up somewhere else. He's never turned into that, but he's turned into a pretty solid player. I think he'll give you numbers similar to what a Shin-Soo Choo gives you, except the average might not be quite as high. But I like Matt Joyce in the outfield. I don't think he's a great option. I think you can improve on Matt Joyce. But in left field, I like Matt Joyce. And then in center field, I like Desmond Jennings quite a bit. Last year in 132 games, he hit .246 with 13 home runs, 47 RBIs, stole 31 bags. This guy has a lot of potential to not only up that average this year, I think he can steal 40 bases. He can play all over the outfield. The power numbers should go up. Desmond Jennings is someone who I'm looking to take that next step this year.
Looking at Matt Joyce first, I like Matt Joyce a lot. A great power bat in the outfield. He compares me to, like, I wouldn't go off a limb here, but he kind of compares me to a small form of Josh Hamilton with just that power bat is just a treat to watch. 17 home runs last year, phenomenal. 59 RBIs, I hope that can go up a little bit. His average, like you said, is going to be somewhere around the Shin-Soo, 241. Jim Joyce has a bright future with this team. Now, going over to Desmond Jennings, I do see a Justin Upton in Desmond Jennings, because when you look at the guy can play all around the outfield, can play in right field, can play in left field, and his prime position is going to be in center field. But when you look at it, this guy does bring 13 home runs last year to the plate, 47 RBIs, batted .246. I hope that this guy can bring that average up a little bit. And you know what? He does have, the great outfield abilities to make these insane plays and can get you a nice solid average if this guy can put forth the effort to do so. So Desmond Jennings is going to be a guy you guys gotta, be really entertained about to see when you come to a Rays game.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and hopefully there are more people going to these Rays games as they continue this success. In center field, and really your fourth outfielder, is going to be Sam Fole, the guy who's a tremendous glove in the outfield. At the plate last year in 98 at-bats, he had .246 with 0 home runs, 5 RBIs. He's more of a guy he stole 7 bases last year. He's the type of guy that you're going to bring in as a pinch runner or a glove late in the 8th or 9th inning. He's one of the best overall outfielders in the MLB in terms of the glove that he brings to the table. So I like Sam Fole a lot. And then in right field, you have one of the most versatile players in the MLB in Ben Zobrist, who the last 2 years has given you virtually identical numbers, hitting at .270 with 20 home runs, except in 2011 he had 91 RBIs. Last year slipped to 74. They need to get back up to that 91 RBI plateau. But Ben Zobrist, he can play so many different positions, and he's one of the more fun players to watch. He will be representing your town, your country, your team USA in the World Baseball Classic coming up, so you're going to get affiliated with Ben Zobrist pretty quickly.
No doubt. I think when you look at his backup as well, Brandon Guyer, who's been down with their AAA and AA team, with the Montgomery Biscuits and the Durham Bull, I think that up-and-coming play, Brandon Guyer, he's going to get you a nice solid average, and this is also more the top prospect that's in this organization that will, develop under, Ben Zobrist, and will get the help from Matt Joyce as well. So Brandon Guyer is the guy you want to look out for. When it comes to Ben Zobrist, what you see is what you get out of him. With the 20 home runs, this team has great power in the outfield with Matt Joyce and with Ben Zobrist. And I like both of these guys. These guys both bring power bats to this team. Not only is this team, it's average in the infield, and when you look in the outfield, it's like all power,
Yeah, no doubt about it. And speaking of power, you go to this rotation, you talk about a power pitcher. That is David Price, who is the defending AL Cy Young Award winner last year, put together the finest season of his MLB career, going 20-5 with a .256 ERA, 2 complete games. One of those was a shutout, over 200 innings for the 3rd straight season. David Price, who ultimately may price himself out of Tampa Bay, no pun intended, has been one of the best pitchers, one of the most consistent pitchers in the MLB over the last few seasons. And again, one of these guys in this Tampa Bay team that has been a treat to watch, and they are really counting on to have another very good season.
He's going to have a big bullseye on his chest. I just hope he doesn't get too cocky enough outside the gate of the season. And you know what? This team did lose, James Shields as the number 2. But you know what? It's now all focusing over to David Price now. 20-5 last year, .266. This guy is phenomenal. I just can't wait to see him start off the season. And I hope that he can possibly get back-to-back American League Cy Youngs.
Now, at the number 2 spot is a guy who Justin and I have talked to before, maybe not the greatest experience ever, but we talked to Jeremy Hellickson, the number 2 pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. Hellickson last year went 10-11 with a 3.10 ERA and 177 innings. Prior to that, the year before, went 13-10 with a 2.95 ERA in 189 innings. The only thing I would ask out of Hellickson is that he gets to 200 innings this year, but overall the ERAs the last 2 seasons have been tremendous. He's a solid number 2 starter in this team and did not fall to a sophomore slump last year.
I have some, the issues with his production last year, but Jeremy Hellickson is overall going to be a great pitcher this upcoming year, and it saw coming into this upcoming season. 2012 wasn't his greatest year, but this guy can produce, can get you those innings, and that's what they really need out of Jeremy Hellickson, filling in for a big role, going up from the number 3 starter all the way up to the number 2, because no longer is James Shields around. He was traded off to the Kansas City Royals. So, Jeremy Hellickson is going to fill in big shoes right now. And I think this kid has what it takes to be a top talented pitcher in Major League Baseball in the future.
At the number 3 spot, another guy who has the thing to be the top talented pitcher in MLB, and that's Matt Moore. A few years ago, came in 2011, only made 3 appearances, 1 start, wowed us in the playoffs then, and then last year I picked him to win Rookie of the Year. He didn't have a bad season. Went 11-11, 3.81 ERA, but just was not the lights-out type pitcher that we saw in the playoffs. And he is someone that if the Rays are going to win this division, he is going to have to step up this year. 11-11, 3.81, that's not going to get it done. You need him to be more along the lines of a 15-16 win guy with a 3.30, 3.40 ERA, and I think he is one of the most talented young pitchers in the game. He's still only 23 years old. He has all the potential in the world this year, and I think that this is a year where we see Matt Moore have a breakout season.
I can see that a little bit, because when you look at this pitch rotation, it was all, jumbled up a little bit, because remember, J.P. Howell's no longer in Tampa Bay because he's going to be going on to Hollywood over there in the Los Angeles Dodgers. But, Matt Moore he's going to be taking his role, and I think Matt Moore does have the potential to be a top pitcher in Major League Baseball. But like you said, he needs to have has to have good outings, has to get the run support behind him, and you know what? I think he does have the great keys and the great features to go out there and be a top pitcher in the future. But you know what? Breakout star this year. I don't think it's going to be a breakout star, but you know what? He's going to be a little bit better than what he was last year.
That's pretty creative, Justin. I wonder where you got that. At the number 4 spot in the rotation, they are going to go with Alex Cobb, who last year went 11-9 with a 4.03 ERA and 136 innings. Alex Cobb is a solid pitcher. I'd like to see him get the ERA down to what it was a few years ago in 2011 when he went 3-2 with a 3.42 ERA, albeit that was in 9 games. I think it's more realistic to expect a 4 ERA this season from Alex Cobb, but he's a solid pitcher. And then to round out the rotation, you have Jeff Neiman, another solid pitcher last year, 2-3, 3.08 ERA, missed a decent amount of the season due to injury. The season before that, 11-7 with a 4.06 ERA. If they can get the Jeff Neiman in 2009 that went 13-6 with a 3.94 ERA, just to see him keep that ERA under 4, that would be big for this team.
Now, when you look at the final role in the pitching rotation, you gotta look at the three-man race right now, which is between Fausto Carmona, Chris Archer, and Jeff Neiman. I think the smart move here is to either go with Roberto Hernandez or Fausto Carmona, and then you got to put Jeff Neiman in the bullpen just to add some more depth in the bullpen. But, if the Rays want to go with Jeff Neiman, you're not losing out. I think Jeff Neiman has what it takes to be a decent number 5 man. But you know what? I think the most solid role for him is going to be down the bullpen. It'll give him a better experience in the bullpen. I think that's where he needs to be. But, Chris Archer, an up-and-coming Rays pitcher, Fausto Carmona also is teams are also targeting him a whole lot during free agency, but the Rays were able to, get the best. And he's also near his home, Fausto Carmona, so that I like the whole play out there with Roberto Hernandez and the Tampa Bay Rays. So I think the smart move right now is for, either Chris Archer or Roberto Hernandez to get it, or you can put Jeff Neiman in the bullpen.
Again, Fausto Carmona and Roberto Hernandez are the same exact person. People forget that. It's confusing. And Look, Fausto Carmona, Roberto Hernandez, whatever you want to call him, he was dirty back in the days of CC Sabathia and him, a 1-2 punch in Cleveland. And then he had some down years, then he put together a good year, and it was either 2009 or 2010. He has the capabilities, but he's never been a consistent pitcher. And then last year just had a ton of issues, even getting a visa to come to the United States again, and just a ton of things went wrong. What didn't go wrong for this Tampa Bay Rays team last year was a stacked bullpen led by Fernando Rodney, who won Rollade's Relief Man of the Year. And then you look at Kyle Farnsworth, who they just brought back this week, re-signed him. We begin, though, with Jake McGee, who that was one of their setup mans, a lefty, went 5-2 with a 1.95 ERA, by far the best season of his young big league career last year. Jake McGee really found himself and was a solid setup man. And then you look at Joel Peralta, who pitched very well for them as well last year, 2-6 with a 3.63 ERA in 67 innings. So they have a solid bullpen. And that's one of the things that made this bullpen so successful. It wasn't just Fernando Rodney. It was that they got the game to him, they got the holds, and then Fernando Rodney put it away late.
Yeah, I like Fernando Rodney a whole lot. I've been following him throughout his times with the LA Angels, come over to the Tampa Bay Rays. This guy is a phenomenal pitcher, but you know what? You gotta look at the younger guys also in the bullpen. You got, Jake McGee, Gall's, Carlos Ramos. These guys are very young. I like the Rays right now. They developed their minor league staff, developed the players very, very great. Look at Jake McGee. Look at last year, 5-2 with the 1.95 ERA. That's stupendous. And I think Jake McGee can come into this season and have a repeat from what he had last year. Overall, I like the production, what the Rays have in their bullpen. It could be in line up for another successful year for them.
One guy who I don't see repeating is the closer, Fernando Rodney, because remember, the Rays basically got him for free last year because he had struggled as the closer of the Angels. He was never a very good success there. He was never consistent when he got the chances to close in Detroit, except for 2009 when he had one really good season. But prior to that, he was not very consistent. So I think Fernando Rodney will still have a solid season, but I would expect 5 or 6 blown saves based off what he's done over the course of his career. Justin, this is a team that won 90 games last year. It is a team that's getting Evan Longoria back. But it's also a team that David Price might not pitch quite as well as he did last year. You don't know what you're getting out of James Loney. You don't know if Fernando Rodney will be as good. You don't know what you're getting out of Luke Scott. Jose Molina really should not be a starting catcher. I'm not trying to find negatives, but in a division that features the Yankees, who made the playoffs last year, the Orioles, who made the playoffs last year, the Toronto Blue Jays, who are a for-real contender, and the Red Sox, who I don't know what to think, but they're the worst. They're the worst team in the division, and I'm seeing about an 85-win season for this Tampa Bay Rays team this year.
I couldn't agree more with you right here. I think they're going to be in line to be in third place this year. But when you look at it, the New York Yankees, even with with A-Rod, that he's probably is going to be showing the boot out of New York, but I still think the Yankees have the power, have the players around them to be, a top contender in that team. The Jays just skyrocket a whole lot this year, acquiring Burley. You're getting these fine guys from the Miami Marlins, and then you're getting the Tampa Bay Rays over there in third. And I think, this team could be making the playoffs as another wild card team. I think they can repeat as a wild card team. But you know what? I think the Rays have what it takes to become in third place this year.
All right, I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. Tomorrow we're going to be previewing the San Diego Padres. Today, though, make sure you follow us on Twitter at the Justin Godsey, at @CashKelly_TRST, KASH Kelly _TRST. Subscribe to our YouTube channels at youtube.com/MrKelstar and youtube.com/NationSportsBlog. And we're going to catch you guys later.